Good morning. This is the Pennington County Planning Commission meeting of April 14th, 2025. Recommendations of the Planning Commission on certain items from this agenda will be considered by the Board of Commissioners at their regular meeting on May 6th, 2025 at 10:30 a.m. The Planning Commission utilizes speaker request forms which are available in the commission chambers during the meeting. And the speaker request forms are in the back. And when you fill one out, then bring it up to Jerry and she'll give it to me. Okay, roll call, Jerry. Everyone's here except Commissioner John Santana. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes of the March 24th, 2025 meeting? Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 The chair would adopt a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brittany Molitor, Planning Director. The following items have been placed on the consent agenda for action to be taken on all items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration. The findings of this Planning Commission on certain items from this agenda are recommendations to the Pennington County Board of Commissioners, who will make the final decision. Item number 4 is conditional use permit review, CUR 1228, for Albert and Rita Chapman to review a vacation home rental in a suburban residential district, and staff recommends approval. Item number 5 is conditional use permit review, CUR 1229, for Albert and Rita Chapman to review a vacation home rental in suburban residential district, and staff recommends approval. Item number 6 is conditional use permit review, CUR 1323, for Todd Syme to review an accessory building in an agriculture district, and staff recommends approval. Item number 7 is conditional use permit review, CUR 2159, for David Keywell and Christine Lepore to review an accessory structure, a shed prior to a primary in a suburban residential district, and staff recommends approval. Item number 8 is conditional use permit review, CUR 2319, for Spring Creek 79 LLC, Jeff Miller is the agent, to review a vacation home rental in an agriculture district, and staff recommends to continue the conditional use permit review to the June 9th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting due to the applicant needing to meet the requirements for the state lodging license. Item number 9 is Plan Unit Development Overlay Review, PUR 2208, for Black Hills Tiny Resort LLC, for Jolene Zoller to review a recreational resort in a highway service district, and staff recommends approval. Item number 10 is Plan Unit Development Overlay Review, COPUR 24-0001, for Michael Vallone, Provolone LLC, to review a specialty resort in a highway service district and agriculture district, and staff recommends to end Plan Unit Development Overlay Review, COPUR 24-0001, as the property was sold on August 19th, 2024, and the use was not established. Item number 11 is Minor Plan Unit Development Amendment Review, COPUR 24-0003, for Paul and Ella Lindy to review living in a recreational vehicle while building a residence in a plan unit development, and staff recommends approval. Item number 12 is Telecommunications Facility Permit Review, TCR 21-02, for Pennington County to review a 180-foot self-supporting public safety radio tower and equipment shelter in a highway service district, and staff recommends approval. And item 13 is Telecommunications Facility Permit Review, TCR 21-03, for AT&T Elevated Towers, Jonas Snyder and Ben Snyder as the agents to review a 300-foot self-supporting telecommunications tower and equipment shelter in a highway service district, and staff recommends approval.
Are there any items that Planning and Zoning would like removed from this?
No, not at this time.
Are there any items that the Planning Commission would like removed?
Madam Chair, number
Yes.
11.
Okay, any others? Chair would address a motion to approve consent agenda items 4 through 13, with the exception of number 11.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Jason will help you out. My question was, it appeared that this should end from the report Cody gave us on. He says April 8th, staff performed a site visit and found the single-family residence has been completed and the RV appeared to be disconnected and stored on the property. Wouldn't we want to end somebody living in it?
That's a very good question. Honestly, I didn't get a chance to follow up on the staff report to.
Can we
provide
just
comments on Cody
continue
report.
this? Because I think it's obvious that's what he wanted, but the word didn't get in there. What?
Oh, it is supposed to be.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like it is supposed to be ended.
Okay. Madam Chair, may I move that instead we accept the staff's recommendation to include the word "end"? COPUR 24-0003.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and
Thank you, Jason.
I have my papers all messed up here. Then the chair would address a motion to approve minor plan unit development amendment review, COPUR 24-0003, with 14 conditions.
We just would have
No, we did,
done that without that. I was changing the word to end it, not,
I did a motion on that. I guess I didn't,
okay, I can
is
read.
that how you took it?
Maybe I can.
Okay. All right, never mind. Okay, we're down to item number 14. Conditional use permit, COCU 25-0006.
It is agenda item number 14. The request is to allow an illuminated on-premise sign within 1,500 feet of a residential zoning district on the subject property. The applicant is Black Hills Tiny Resort LLC. The agent is Jolene Zoller. She's in the audience if you have any questions for her. Location is 8674 South Highway 16. Property is 13.79 acres, currently zoned Highway Service District. Existing land use is residential and tiny homes. Access is off an unnamed access easement. There's no special flood hazard area on the property. Zoning ordinance lists 7 criteria the planning commission may consider in their review of conditional use permit applications. They're on the screen. If you have any questions on that. The request was routed out for interdepartmental review. South Dakota Department of Transportation did have comments on that were attached to the staff report. It did make their way into as conditions of approval. No other objections or concerns were received. Staff's analysis of the request said the applicant is requesting to allow an illuminated sign within 1,500 feet of a residential zoning district. The nearest residence to this proposed sign is about 933 feet away. You can see on the map on the screen. This is the proposed area of the project looking north. The sign will go approximately here. You can see in the artist rendering down below. And this is what the sign will look like once it's erected. With that, staff recommends approval of conditional use permit 25-0006 with conditions.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
question for Jason. There's also a large billboard sign on the property that's an off-premises. Is that permitted?
That, I think, is within the DOT right-of-way.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I'm sorry.
But it's not permitted through us.
I would have to double check on that. I didn't see it listed as a sign permit on the subject property when I did the review. So
It's-
it may be a legal non-conforming structure within the DOT right-of-way, but they didn't provide any comment on that one.
As you know, I drive that way a lot, so it's been used over the years, and then sometimes it stays dormant and then comes back. And
Right.
Just had a question, and it might be something we'd want to look into for the future, especially, I agree with you, at least half of it looks like it's on the right of way.
Yep. Yeah, if you'd like to, I could do some research and reach out to DOT and find out.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for Jason? The chair would address a motion on this item.
Move to approve?
Second.
This recommendation with 7 conditions. Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded to approve COCU 25-0006 with 7 conditions. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item number 15.
Good morning, Commissioners. Christine Phillips, Assistant Planner. Agenda item number 15 is a lot line adjustment plat, COLLA 25-0002. There was a typo on that. The applicant is Mike Lang. Location is 11824 Wild Horse Court and 11836 Wild Horse Court. The access is from Wild Horse Court, and there's no flood hazard on the property. Staff did a layout plan and it was approved in January, and the conditions of approval found at that point are on the screen if you have any questions on that. There are 2 existing lots. The first one is 0.59 acres and contains a single-family residence with an on-site water treatment system. The second one is 0.58 acres and contains a single-family residence with an on-site wastewater treatment system. There are 2 proposed lots. The first one will be 0.589 acres and will contain a single-family residence and an on-site wastewater treatment system. The second one will be 0.577 acres and will contain a single-family residence and an on-site wastewater treatment system. A request was sent out for interdepartmental review. There were no objections or concerns received. The staff analysis is the applicants have applied to reconfigure lot lines to create lots 22R and lot 23R of Block 5 of Ranch at Black Gap. Staff finds no significant issues with the applicant's request, as it appears to be in harmony with the existing lots and current land uses in the area. With this, staff recommends approval of lot line adjustment plat COLLA 25-0002 with conditions.
Other questions for Christine?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Christine, you noted in your report, and I don't know, some of the items that we review require then a condition, but it noted that the operating permit was expired on the one piece of property.
Correct.
Is that something that's only required when we have a building permit, stuff like that? In other words, for a condition?
Or if lots are split or bought or sold. So they will have to actually get that done before they file it with Register of Deeds.
Can I ask that you would add it as a condition?
It's in the recommendations. Do you want it as
Which one is the first one?
number 3?
3? Got it. Sorry, missed that. Thank you, Christine.
Any other questions,
I just have a
concerns?
quick question. Why the minor change?
If you look on the screen, there's a retaining wall right there,
Ah, so, okay. All right,
built over that.
now I see. Yep, great. No, that's all I have, Madam Chair.
The chair would address a motion on this item.
I'll move to approve lot line adjustment plat, COLLA-PL 25-0002 with 3, well, there's recommendations.
Second.
Discussion on this item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, next item, planned unit development overlay, COPU 25-0002.
Good morning, Kelsey Roush, planner. Item number 16 is a planned unit development overlay to allow a planned unit, to allow a specialty resort. The property is currently being used as what this is for. The property is located at 24110 Leaky Valley Road off of Old Hill City Road. The property owner is Garrett and Caitlin Shields, Hinterwood LLC. It is 19.57 acres, and it's zoned agriculture district. The existing land use is, there are 3 cabin rentals and a single wide rental. There's no special flood hazard area on the property. This is the property map provided by the property owner. And Ordinance 216 lists the following standards and requirements that shall apply in a PUD overlay district. They meet all the requirements to allow a PUD overlay, as shown above. Zoning ordinance lists, section 510 lists 7 criteria that the planning commission may consider in their review of this application, as well as the planned unit development overlay. The uses of the proposed PUD overlay should not be detrimental to the property, endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare of the public. The uses of the proposed PUD overlay district should not substantially impair or diminish the uses of other property in the neighborhood. Uses of the proposed PUD overlay should not impede the normal and orderly development of the surrounding properties. The property has adequate utilities, access roads, and drainage. The existing approach is off of Leaky Valley Road. Requested uses conform to all applicable regulations of an agriculture district with an approved PUD overlay. And the future land uses identified as ranchette. Specialty type resorts are a consistent use within this district. The property currently has a lodging license with the South Dakota Department of Health for a specialty resort. There is 1 single-family residence on the subject property that has been split into 4 separate units. There are 3 cabins that have been built by the property owner, and there is a single wide that has been remodeled by the property owner and is used as a rental as well. The property currently has a conditional use permit to allow a recreational resort. In 2017, it was approved, and during the meeting, there was some confusion. It was approved as it is now. At the next review in 2018, a previous planner put the wrong conditions in, and it was approved in that way in 2018. There was talk about bed and breakfast, which is not what they're running. So in my next review, I've noticed all these inconsistencies and how it was approved incorrectly. We decided to change this whole property into a PUD overlay district to fix what was broken and to bring it into more of a specialty resort instead of a recreational resort. Recreational is more like RVs, campsites, that type of a use. This is cabins, and it just does not quite fit recreational resort. So that is the point of changing them over to the PUD overlay. Okay, there is 1 septic system that is not currently hooked to anything. So they do have the option, they can build 1 more cabin, they can build a manager's residence, they have 1 more empty septic that they can put something on. There's currently 3 cabins and 1 single wide. Their conditional use permit was approved for 4 cabins and the single wide. So they have some options. I've tried to keep it kind of in line with what they're currently using it for. There were no objections or concerns during the interdepartmental review. And do you have any questions for me?
Okay. Questions for Christine?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
got 2 for you, Kelsey. Good morning, Kelsey.
Good morning.
First one is that septic that's not being used, has it been used before?
No, it's brand new. It was installed in 2018.
Because I would look at it a little different condition if it had been used before, because it's my understanding that once they have been used, they need to be rechecked to
Right.
see what the perking effect
Right.
is. But if it has been used, I don't have any problem with that. That means it's laying in fresh. So second one being, and you know this, I prefer that all of our fire things still notify our Black Hills guests that we're a regulated fire district and that an open fire at times is not permitted. Irregardless of the permits on the pit and everything else, there are times. And I hate to lay that all on the owner, other than telling the folks, you need to check this out before you go strike that match and start the fire. I still believe, I like that condition in there, that the owner tells the people before they use that they need to check and see whether a fire is allowed.
So should we add that condition that we
I
usually
just,
use?
I know I push on that,
Yep.
but the fire is a serious concern, and this year's gonna be a big time if we don't get some moisture. Thank you, Kelsey.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
isn't that addressed in condition 18? It talks about the proper permits to be obtained for utilizing and any applicable fire restrictions adhered to at all times.
Lori,
So-
I'll answer that. Not entirely.
Because you want them to actually
I want the
speak
owners
that
to
to
say,
them.
listen, here's the
Okay.
internet address, get it on your internet or put it on your phone, and you can check whether you can see whether you have an open flame in the Black Hills before you let. There's times that owners are not home. There's times that owners could be in bed before the people start the thing.
Okay. So you
So
just
that
want-
was
okay.
why I believe it's better for all of us when the owner says, listen, you need to check that to see whether fire, or if they know, maybe fire is out right now. So then they can say, there is no use of the fire pit available right now. I just think it's safer for all of us. Opinion only.
Comment.
Michael?
This is just up the road from where we live. This used to be owned by Jim and Lynn Goglin, and they called it the Anchorage, and we used to go visit them. My only concern at this point is it used to get really soupy. When it rained a lot, when it was that time of year, it would get soupy. So I assume these people have taken care of that part of it.
They are here, so you can ask them that question.
That would be my only concern.
When you say soupy, do you mean the roads?
Well, I have not been up there in years since the Goglins left, and in fact, they're not with us anymore. But at that time, the roads were just more or less a little bit of gravel and a lot of mud. And I have no idea the condition now. But if they've taken care of that, as long as they're aware of it, I guess that would be my only concern.
We live right next to that. So what you're talking about being soupy, we've been there for over 30 years.
You need to come up front. Want to speak? Please introduce yourself.
My name is Vanessa Rao, and I live right next to that Jacob Maka Road. And what you're talking about soupy, since we know it very well, because in our property, we also have that. And what it is natural springs in that area. So when we have our early spring weather, if we have a lot like we normally did years ago, we don't have it so much right now because of it being drought. Those will pop up again, and that's why we always called that leaky valley, because a lot of times you couldn't get in there. Same with my property at one time, used to be that until we had to build in boulders on our road and make it so we wouldn't have that problem. So yes, that would be my concern on the fire issues, because it's been very, very dry. In the years before that, we had very, very natural springs, and now they're kind of dried up right now. So that would be my only concern too, is make sure if they're gonna have a fire pit, that the Keystone Fire Department knows about it, and that they're using it, so that people like us right next door, because if there is a fire there is some properties in my area, fire trucks cannot get up there to save that house because of the steepness. So just want that just be on record that you need to watch out about fire pits out in that area.
Thank you. Shields, would you like to come up and? Please introduce yourselves.
Garrett and Caitlin Shields. I was just gonna say, we have addressed the soupiness. I couldn't quite see, was it you who were asking the question about soupiness?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, you were behind Kelsey, so I can't see. But yeah, we've owned the property since 2017, so 2018 and 2019, I don't know if you remember, but we're really rainy years. But we have done a couple different iterations those first 2 years after that of ditching and getting it to drain and flow down. So it's those first 2 years where we got to experience the soupiness right off the bat and knew that it was something that we needed to address. So
It didn't used to have a ditch, so it would just like
Yeah.
spread.
And
Now
you've
we're
gravelled
trying
the roads up through there?
yeah, and we've had people come in and redo the roads and gravel them already twice since we've owned it.
I know I
And-
go
and
by
I've
it, but
got a-
I've never paid any attention.
Yeah.
That was my only question. So
And I've got a dump trailer, so I also, like, a couple times throughout the year, get gravel and spread it and keep it going fresh, so. And to also address the fire concerns, we totally agree, and we actually already have wording. It's not a problem at all to put a condition in there like that, because we already have verbiage in our guest books when they check in that they need to look up if fires are allowed and to contact us. And, I mean, for example, yesterday, because of the wind, we actually sent out an email letting everyone know that we are not allowing fires yesterday, simply because of the wind. Just, so we try to be a little more proactive, because we completely agree, we'd hate for something like that to happen on our property.
We're highly motivated for it not to burn down,
Yeah,
yeah.
so.
so,
Any other questions?
Yeah, do
Lori?
you guys live on the property?
We are half a mile down the road
You're
now.
close?
We
Oh,
were
okay.
on the property, now our employee lives on property.
Okay, so there's always someone who lives there?
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay. The chair would address a motion, and you want this with 23 conditions, Charlie?
Correct.
Okay. Would address a motion on this item?
Move to approve with 23 conditions. COP PU 25-0002.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve COPU 25-0002 with 23 conditions. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Item number 17.
Morning again, Commissioners. Jason Thennison, Assistant Planning Director. Agenda item number 17 is rezone CORZ 25-0002. The applicants are Tyler and Sarah Mills. The other affected landowner is Lowell Flieger. Their surveyor and engineer is Renner Associates LLC. Location of the property are 5768 and 5977 Sparrowhawk Trail. Proposed property is 3.96 acres, currently zoned agriculture district. Existing land use is residential access as off Sparrowhawk Trail. When staff does take into consideration rezoning requests, we do look at the Pennington County zoning designation comparison, which you can see here on the screen. In green is the current zoning district, orange is the future land use, and the proposed zoning district is rural residential in yellow on the right. We also do look at current and future land use within 1/2 mile of the property. You can see those depicted on the screen. Current zoning is on the left, future land use is on the right. We also look at roads and streets. Sparrowhawk Trail is a 33-foot wide private access easement. 18 feet of that is a gravelled surface. We look at infrastructure. There is a private well and a private on-site wastewater treatment system on the properties. The request was sent out for interdepartmental review, and there were no objections or concerns received. Staff's analysis of the request is that the applicant is platting through the city of Rapid City to create Lot 3R of Smith Addition. The proposed lot size is going to be 3.96 acres, which meets a minimum lot size for the requested zoning district. Existing roads and infrastructure would support rural residential zoning, as well as being in harmony with existing zoning and future land uses in the area. With that, staff recommends approval of rezone CORZ 25-0002. and I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, questions for Jason?
Jason? We don't have that in our book, that's what I was
I noticed
referring
that, I noticed that this morning when I was going through the
Is
presentation.
that the piece of property that's in the illustration here that's outlined in that corner?
Right, so if you keep this in your mind real quick, it's down here in this corner, so it's
Okay.
extending this lot over to add some extra acreage
All right.
onto that property.
But we do have that from the surveyor renter in our records for the department?
Yep.
Okay. My only question.
Yep. Apologize for the confusion on that.
Any other questions for Jason?
And it only involves, I don't know how many acres is in the whole plat there, but it only involves 3.970 of those acres?
Right, so if you look at the front page of the staff report, it's got the meets and bounds description that
Yes.
describes off that portion that's being rezoned. Mhm.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, I have a question. We have an email from Maggie Berry. Has this been addressed? And that
We just got that
she's
this morning.
suggesting that whatever the letter was that was sent out is different than what's happening over there? Is there another bigger project on this?
No, I'm not sure who she's talked to. Like I said, we got that this morning, so I will follow up with her after this meeting. There must be some misunderstanding of what she's interpreting that letter to say.
Jason, when you look at some of these meets and bounds types descriptions, and where I didn't have the other document that you've got from Renner, I wondered the same, is this the meets and bounds of 40 or 50 acres,
Right,
or?
yeah, that's why I made sure to include this on the presentation. I
Okay.
wanted everybody to be clear.
And I could see where somebody would see with, and it's difficult for you folks, I understand, with the 10-day notice, where they don't have much time to do research either. That's where,
Of course.
thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
I just had one more question. Andrea, was this the property you had in question? Did you want to speak on it, or did you have a request?
Yes, I have
Oh,
received
okay,
a
perfect.
request for him. Go ahead and come on up.
I'm here representing the three upper ditches, irrigation ditches, the Cyclone, the South Side, and the Murphy. We do not object, but we will flood. That's what we do. And we will leak. And I think it needs to be taken into consideration for compatibility. The ditches would like to work with people, but they should be, I know Tyler's aware of this, but in the future, so I gave Ron our set of standards. The upper three ditches have formed one set of standards. We also have become aware we're going to have to add standards for bridges because everything is changing. We've been there, well, the Murphy was there before we were a state. These are prescriptive, we got used to being what we are. So there will be changes. He's got 2 copies. I think the people who have to do all this research, it would help them because of what we can do and are. I am moving forward onto shadow maps, and we'll go on 811. Big leap, but I'm going there. I had put my laterals on 811, and I am very satisfied with it. And then there'll be electronic maps available after that. TUI Design is helping me make these forward motions. So we're just want to say, there we are, and it should be in consideration because he's downhill from us.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I didn't hear your name.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say.
That's fine.
Andrea Anderson, and then I have my name as the contact on the cover sheet. I'm the ditch boss on the Cyclone, vice president of the Murphy, Pam Kammerer on the south side, and I'm her main worker bee. I'm on all 3 ditches.
Okay.
And we want to give you one thing, one set of rules, one set of everything. We have the same engineer, and our standards were written by an engineer and gone over by Jess Pekarsky's office so they're, workable in the legal world and in the engineering world.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
just a point of order, and we don't have any regulation like the Board of Commissioners. We need to copy that right now. We allow and we should be furnished as members before we have to vote this, because I'm all for this. Andrea, I agree. Coming forward and saying, let's not talk about this after it happens, let's talk about it while it's happening or during.
Yes.
And that's excellent. I appreciate you coming forward with that.
And-
Can
and
we get copies of those so we can at least see what's being?
Yes, well, yep, she got 2, and I should have brought more. So we want to work with everybody. We're not obstructionists. The valleys, people need to do what they need to do. They need to use their land. But it would be better to work together than me to go down there and wave my little rake around and get all excited. That's not good. So we're trying to be professional with the standards and an attorney and an engineer and contact numbers. And like I say, I'm moving forward to go on the 811, which is, I think, the next step.
Andrea, where are the drainage ditches in relation to these properties?
I brought some maps, and these are not electronic, but I am getting those developed. And you got the cyclone, see the cyclone right there. Now, the south side ditch is down on South Side Drive,
Okay.
so that's north, so that's not going to affect this. But I'm going right down that road,
Okay.
and these.
So that's on the ditch?
There are 3 maps because 3 ditches. So I come up on South Valley Drive with the Murphy and the Cyclone, run across town. The south side goes to the creek on Bradsky Road, and the Murphy goes back across Dan Lewis is just by the airport. South side comes off of my property on
Cyclone,
Reservoir
okay.
and goes back.
Yikes. Okay.
Madam Chair, and these are irrigation ditches, not drainage ditches, right?
Right,
They're-
excuse
They're
me.
irrigation. I just wanted to make sure I
Sorry.
understood that correctly.
And we get our little feathers up. called green.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Hey, Madam Chair, I just, on Andrea's behalf, I wanted to make a comment about some of the problems they've had in the past with the drainage ditches and people involved. They don't know that they're not drainage ditches, they're actually irrigation ditches, and their precedents, they have property rights, water rights over and above, beyond even the railroad tracks. So it's something that this fellow should, it looks like we're platting right on this, but go ahead, Jason, you got a question?
So the request before you today is to rezone this property. All of the platting is going on through the city of Rapid City. So I would encourage Ms. Anderson to reach out to the city of Rapid City to address any kind of infrastructure needs that are going to happen with that plat. But this is to bring a legal non-conforming property, which is zoned agriculture district, into conformance by rezoning it to rural ranchette.
I think Andrea's main purpose is just to explain to us here that
Yes.
Sure.
her rights that are involved here, because she will win in the end. if
Right, I'd just
anybody
like her
wants
to go speak with the city and let her know those concerns over there, because they're in the position to actually affect things on the plat.
And I'll volunteer to help you with that, Andrea, so.
The city, in general, has not accepted anything unless there's an agreement with the ditches. And we've got some
Maybe we can,
legacy, Thanstra.
maybe we can reach out to Tyler and just give him a copy of this too, so he understands.
Sure.
I want you to, we are not objecting to this. It just seemed like we want to get ourselves up to speed. We hadn't come and talked to you. We felt we needed to address it. So that way that you aren't in the city's purview, then we are in the Library of Congress. We are prescriptive, so we're there. So that's all. And then anybody who ever has questions can surely call Pam or I, and we'll get an answer
Okay,
for you.
thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
can I ask Jason one? Can I ask you, would you live with, if I made a motion to table this until after number 20, so that we could at least see what was turned into us. I don't have any problems either. I'm like Andrea. I don't have any problems voting on this if I could see this, and I'm hesitant to do so, even though it's new information.
Yep, that's completely up to the commission.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we table this until after item number 20
Okay.
and reopen it then.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Item 18?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we do 18 and 19 together, but we vote on them separately.
Is there a second to that motion? Okay. It's been moved, it's been moved and seconded to discuss items 18 and 19 together and vote on them separately. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
All right, so agenda item number 18 is comprehensive plan amendment, COCA 25-0002. And agenda item 19 is rezone, CORZ 25-0003. To amend the comprehensive plan to change future land use from Ranchette District to Rural Residential District in order to rezone from Agriculture District to Rural Residential District. The applicant is Gary Mitzel. Their agent is Andrew Bussey. Their surveyor is All Aspects Incorporated. Location of the property is 24101 Highway 16A. Currently, it is 12.57 acres, zoned agriculture district. Existing land use is residential. Access is off Highway 16A, and there's no special flood hazard area on the property. Again, staff does look at the zoning designation comparison, which you can see on the screen. Current zoning is in green. Future land use is Ranchette at 5 acres, and proposed zoning is rural residential district at 3 acres, so it is an increase in density. We do evaluate current zoning and future land use within 1/2 mile of the subject property. You can see in yellow, this is the proposed zoning district that they're moving, or that they're requesting. So it is common throughout the area to see that zoning district. We do look at roads and streets. There's a private access easement via Highway 16, which is 40 feet wide. 24 feet of that is a gravel surface. Infrastructure consists of a private well and a private on-site wastewater treatment system. The request was sent out for interdepartmental review, and there were no objections or concerns received. However, staff did receive one letter of opposition to the request. Staff's analysis of the request is that the applicants have submitted a layout plan, COLPL 25-0007, to subdivide the property and create 2 lots. You can see what they're proposing up on the screen. You got Lot 2R2 in green, Lot 2R1 in red. Both of those meet the minimum 3-acre lot size requirement. The existing roads and infrastructure would support rural residential zoning as well as being in harmony with existing zoning and future land use in the area. With that, staff would recommend approval of comprehensive plan amendment COCA 25-0002 and rezone CORZ 25-0003. I'll stand for any questions.
Other questions for Jason? Okay, I've got a speaker request I have a couple for these. Anna Bussey? Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Anna Bussey, Andrew's wife. We live right next door, and we have been neighbors since 2014. I feel like we've been good neighbors, and we want to continue to be good neighbors. We're replatting and rezoning to, because we're purchasing the property in 2 transactions. And then the rezoning would be no different than what's already been done in the area. And our goal is just to make a better surrounding for our business to help make our helicopter operation better, safer, and we're just trying to move towards that goal. Thank you.
Questions? No? Okay. I have a speaker request form from Gary Mitchell. Gary?
My name is Gary Mitzel. I'm the owner of the property, and I'll take any questions. I don't really have anything to say other than answer questions.
Commission, have any questions for Mr. Mitzel? We did have one item, or one letter in opposition to this from Danielle Banks.
Madam Chair, it was actually an email, right?
Email.
Yeah, it was an email, yeah. I don't know if you've seen this.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We got an email, not a letter, and I'm not sure if you've seen this from Ms. Banks.
Oh, no, I haven't seen it.
She questioned, I guess, the condition of the property. I don't know if there's anything else.
Nothing in writing.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just an email. And we can share that with Mr. Mitzel, correct? Okay. And I guess I didn't look at the date. Did you receive this prior to writing up your recommendation?
We received it March 31st.
Okay.
That's correct.
Madam Chair, I have a question here. So this is the first time he's seen this letter, or?
This was Cody's staff report. I'm not sure if he was on the email that went out to him. Normally, we follow up the Friday prior to the hearing with the staff report draft. Sir, I don't know if you've seen this before.
I'm sorry, I'm so hard.
Did you get a chance to see that prior to today?
Not prior to
Oh,
today.
okay.
Because then we have another one here for item 20, which is the same thing, right? We're handling these together.
19.
Has he seen that one either?
If you'd like, do you have a Google picture of the place?
Oh, sorry.
That's fine, yeah.
No. I'm getting myself
that's
confused
fine.
here. Thank you.
Basically, if I could make a couple comments, it would establish safer fire truck access. We would make sure that it's a good cleared road back in, just for fire reasons. There'll never be any development. The whole purpose of this is to keep it from being developed. The reason why I said about a Google picture is there's probably only 3 acres out of the 12 2/3 that are flat enough to do anything with. Most of it is undevelopable, and even the water on the property can't be drank. We buy our drinking water. We just want it left alone. Okay, I'm sorry. Reason why I started this conversation is I was going to say the land value went from $7,200 in 20. Now it's $22,200. And our taxes have skyrocketed on all this acreage that is unusable except for ag purposes. And of course, when the value of the land tripled, the whole time the structures only went up 2 or 3% a year, but the land tripled. And, of course, then the taxes doubled or more. But it would leave it in, it would downsize the size of our residence.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not sure I understand what he's saying.
So that.
What are we doing here
So I
with it?
Can I
believe,
throw in an additional one?
Yeah, go
The
ahead.
picture up here doesn't coincide with what I'm seeing in the book.
Okay, maybe that's my issue.
right, so they're rezoning the entire subject proproperty, which
Okay.
is
showing
this,
there is
this
this-
entire.
And if you look at the air, what do you call it, Rapid City, whatever the
Rapid map.
rapid map, it looks like there's 3 or maybe 4 structures on what's being comprehensive plan and rezone, excuse me. Where does that fit in there?
It's just this portion.
I don't understand.
So these two portions that I have highlighted on the screen, these two proposed lots, are on the subject property, like they're subdividing that property.
But what's the red line around the one?
This is a separate lot, Lot 2R1, and then in green is 2R2. So this is the proposed layout plan that they have on file with our office right now.
Okay.
This rezone is supporting that layout plan.
So it'll all be zoned the same then?
Correct.
Is it zoned differently right now, or is it
Zoned agriculture district right now.
the whole thing?
Correct.
Well, this is the first step in,
Changing that.
Yes. So
Can
we
I
have,
throw in one more question then? How did the, and maybe I'm goofy, how did the comprehensive plan come up with this particular layout in the first place? We got that one residential, rural residential, and then we're blocked off with ranchette, and then we got a little tiny rural residential. Some of that doesn't even make sense, how it got there in the first place.
yeah, so the company that we hired back in 2019, 2020
All
to
right.
do our comprehensive plan, didn't really take into account infrastructure. They looked more or less at parcel size only. So that's why you see, they ran an algorithm throughout the entire county and found parcels that were smaller, that would fit a zoning district, and then that's what they got assigned. So there wasn't really a thorough look at all of the properties. We actually have a comprehensive plan amendment now moving forward. We have public hearings on it that I went through and did a deep dive on the entire property, every parcel in the county, to make sure that we corrected those
Well,
deficiencies.
since I'm aware of some other ones, I understand what you're saying.
All right.
And my last question would be, if I'm looking at the rapid map type picture, which is easier for me to digest at this point in time with us dealing with part of it already, the part that we're making from 2 ranchettes to what, basically, I'm just going by what can be built on it, in my mind.
Of course.
Okay, density. Is that more appropriate? Okay, the density we're changing from 2, either under comprehensive plan or rezoning, because we're talking about both. Is that the area that's not yet with any structures in it?
It's
From
the entire.
Well, I
property.
was talking about, have you got a picture of rapid map there?
Satellite.
Yeah. I'm saying in my mind, that's a little easier to understand than color. I'm just looking at a color. Where does this all fit? Because there's a lot of structures on the other, and are we changing the other as well? That's already built on.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the entire subject property, all, I think,
The
12.
non-developed, whichever direction that rapid map would be indicating, as well as, is there then 3, when we're talking density, is there 3?
It's one property, Charlie.
One
Right-
property.
Right here. This one property.
But it's on ranchette right now, right? According to the
It's on.
color pictures. Which mean there could be 2 dwellings on it, right?
It's agriculture district. right
Oh,
now.
it's agriculture.
So, yep, the comprehensive plan amendment, so future land use is rural residential, or I'm sorry,
Oh, all
it's
right.
ranchette, which is
Yeah,
a
when
5
you
acre
get back to
minimum.
the zoning, I was looking at the comprehensive plan.
So the comprehensive plan is also changing to allow
All
a
right, I
lesser zoning
understand.
district, yep.
Yeah, that fogged me right over. But we do have, what, more than 2 as far as density on it right now? Then we have 3.
I believe there's only one house on there at
One.
this point.
The rest is development from that.
Yeah, go back to that picture. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I ask you a question? So this picture we don't have in our information.
Yeah.
So is that like this part of this,
Correct.
right?
That's correct, yep.
Okay,
And
and
I
that's-
apologize, this wasn't in your packet.
Okay,
It should have
okay.
been.
And then what Charlie was saying was that there's some other yellow pieces. We do see the yellow pieces that are on the, yeah, there's a couple little yellow parcels surrounding it, correct?
Correct.
Or in
yep.
the, and in the area then over there too,
We have this entire subdivision here that's.
As far as
zoned.
comprehensive plan
as
goes,
far as the
yes.
comprehensive
Thank
plan
you.
goes. And then that
Current
kind
land.
of fits in with what's going on in the area.
Correct, yep. And current land use is on the left, so you can see that these parcels over here are zoned rural residential as well. So it is common throughout the area.
But just so I understand what you're saying about, what's the size of that larger parcel, the whole piece itself?
3.91.
Well, no, just the portion that we're talking about is the 3.9, right? The stuff you have in red?
Talking about both parcels, both of these together. So we're talking about the 12.57 acres
Okay. all right.
altogether.
So the red one is 4, and the green one is 8, correct?
8.28, correct.
But we don't show any of that.
No, here it shows, it just shows that it's 12.57 acres.
Right, so this is just to provide reference as to what they're doing in the
Yeah,
future. Like, this
yeah.
is what they're proposing. So the request, all-inclusive, is the 12.57 acres, the entire property.
And what you're saying, though, is really the 4 acres is all that's really ever developable because of the condition, and the rest of it really is not developable. I can't say developable. Able to be developed maybe would be a better way to say it.
Never in my life, anyway.
Okay, all right.
Are there any further questions?
Madam Chair.
Chairman.
Jason, I'm sorry I hold you responsible for that. There is some lack of thinking in some of this comprehensive plan stuff, and I realize you end up the brunt of my questions and concerns about that. I apologize.
That's why I'm here.
And what you're saying is there's those other structures in the area in red, but only one is a home. The rest of those are outbuildings?
I don't know that for sure. Cody's working the layout plan on this one, but if there are any conflicts with that, then Cody will address that through the
Yeah.
layout plan process.
There's something, I can't read the writing on there. One.
Yeah, they both do
Oh,
say
it says
house.
house shop.
House shop.
It says 2 houses, okay. Okay.
Madam Chair, I do look at it like density because I believe, I've seen houses built where anymore, even around the city with their building requirements, you just wouldn't believe that anybody would tackle building a house at the spot, but somebody will someday.
Somebody will.
So that's the way I look at it in density, and that's why I was apologizing to Jason. Some of the comprehensive stuff left a lot to be desired how it got there.
The chair would address a motion on item number 18.
Yeah, I'll move to amend the comprehensive plan development amendment, COCA 25-0002. Do we need a motion to rezone it from Ranchette District to rural residential?
That'll be the following agenda
That'll
item.
be a second motion.
Well, that's what 18 says. Oh, it's to amend the plan, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is to amend the comprehensive plan, the second one is for the rezone.
Okay.
Excuse me?
Is there a second?
I'd second that, what she's got.
Discussion?
Just one question, how is that going to work with 2 houses on there?
Like I said, we'll work through that with the layout plan to find out. I don't know if it's one of those is a mobile home. I'm not sure if it's a removable structure or not.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Item number 19.
One more note, though, you will see this again for either the preliminary plan or the lot line adjustment.
Okay, Chair would address a motion on item number 19, the rezone from agriculture district to rural residential district.
And I'll move to the rezone. It's rezone C0RX 25003, and this is the actual rezone one.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item number 20.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Megan Talmadge, planner. Agenda item number 20 is Planned Unit Development Overlay, COPU 25-0001, and is to allow a planned unit development overlay for a specialty resort. The applicant is Jenna Wilburn, and there is a representative in the audience to talk more about the property. This is located north of the intersection of Rochford Road and Silver Creek Road along Silver Creek Road. It's 7.17 acres in Ranchette District. It's currently vacant. There is no flood hazard area indicated on FEMA flood maps, but I will get more into that later. When considering planned unit developments, staff lists standards outlined by Section 216, and they are shown on screen. In addition to those standards, conditional use permit standards, Section 510, lists 7 criteria that the Planning Commission may consider in their review of these items. They are also listed on screen. In the interdepartmental review, staff received comment from Emergency Services, Forest Service, addressing. Just Friday, I received more comments from Emergency Services, and they should have been relayed to you this morning. And they vary from the access road provided must be increased to 20 feet wide with a turnaround. The Forest Service is asked that any future development and improvements maintain integrity of the road. For addressing, the addresses must be posted on Silver Creek, and then each site will have its own separate address. So this plan unit development overlay is to operate a specialty resort, which will include multiple short-term rental sites, primitive cabin sites, a manager's residence, a sauna, a bathhouse, an event venue, and a community kitchen. The short-term rentals will include 3 eco-domes, 2 park models. There's a streamline going through the property, and along that streamline, FEMA indicates that there is no floodplain, but upon further review, staff does believe that there may be a conflict, so we are going to require, per the conditions, that a floodplain, a base flood elevation be established for this property. In addition, there is extensive wetlands, and they will need to receive proper permitting through Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources for the wetlands. Staff has received, I've gotten extensive public comments on this. I'm sure we have a lot of speaker request forms today, so I'm trying to hurry through this a little bit. But overall, staff recommends approval, but I would like to include an additional condition due to the recommendation by Jerome that any permits, that the applicant obtain any permits necessary from South Dakota Division of Wildland Fire Suppression for any sort of fire pits or burning that would take place on the property.
Are there questions for Megan?
Madam Chair, I have a couple
Yes.
questions. The flood plan and the elevations, you mentioned that there's a concern about the conflict between FEMA and who?
And what the historic data that we have received so far.
So there's a stream that runs through it, Silver Creek, is it?
Yes, so it is a streamline that's indicated on our maps, so we honor it as a streamline, which means that structures have to be so far away, septic systems have to be so far away. And with that, although FEMA says that it doesn't flood to the 100-year floodplain standard that is shown in blue on our maps, like what I have on the screen right now, we believe that there may actually be some floodplain on that property.
And why do we believe that again?
We received a hydraulic analysis from the applicant that showed.
They submitted that hydraulic analysis?
They did, and that
It's
was.
in conflict with FEMA?
They haven't gone to FEMA. I'm taking so FEMA says that there's no floodplain on this property. And that's where the conflict comes in, is that we're saying that there may actually be floodplain on this property.
That's from the results of the hydraulic study?
Yes, and historic flooding data.
Okay. Then the other question is the wetlands. Is there a map up there where the wetlands are?
The left map is the wetlands. So in the green indicated on the left
Okay.
shows the wetlands. Unfortunately, I couldn't overlay it with property lines.
I got you.
But it is side by side. I tried to align it as much as possible.
Oh, is that drawn out in the red there
Yes.
then?
Yep.
Or the orange? Okay.
So the right is floodplain, the left is wetlands.
So there has to be mitigation done for that then, or?
Yes.
And is that done yet?
No.
So they don't really know what they can do with this land?
At the moment, no. This is just a preliminary,
I got you, because they don't want to go ahead and do all this and then get turned down anyway. Is that the point?
yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
And just so I understand then, the conditions that you're concerned about, you mentioned the fire and the wetlands and the flooding are addressed in conditions 16, 20, and 22 to make the applicant aware that they need the studies or the permitting required to meet the concerns that have been stated?
That is correct.
Okay.
And then the additional condition that I ask be requested with the condition relating to burning.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably because I'm not a glamper or whatever, as you well know from my past performances on these things. I have problems with primitive campsites along streams when you've got to walk 250 feet maybe in the dark in the Black Hills. And I don't know how many people have ever done that, but that's an exciting adventure out there, 250 feet in the dark in the Black Hills, to go take a leak or do your job. And I have problems with that. And I see that. We have glamping sites with no bathrooms in them at all. These at least have something in them, I see. I don't know how you address those. I'm just saying as a commissioner, all that just kind of baffles me because probably I'm not a glamper.
Yep, it'll be pretty dependent on where the bathhouse is, I think.
Well, I just looked at their layout, and there's some long distances to the primitive sites. And heavens, it doesn't make sense if you ever lived out in the Black Hills. People aren't going to go to, and the noises and the creepy crawly things that happen, and we've got people watching television before they come here as a guest, they're going to stay in whatever their primitive site is or very close. And if the stream's very close, now we're operating without any septic out, you know what I mean. You're just asking for, and we don't include lighting in these, and I have problems accepting all that as a normal, rational. I guess I live in a solid structure, not one that the hail can go through. At least wrecks my roof instead. Thank you, Madam
Are
Chair.
there other comments?
Comments, yes.
Michael?
I live in Hill City, and I mountain bike the Mick. I usually go from Mystic to Dumont and back, and I'm familiar with the area. Now, not up the draw or the gulch. I was there shortly after the big flood, and Charlie, what year was that? I don't remember.
7.
Okay. And it
There was 2 in 3 years actually up there.
took out the road above
Mhm. There was
Rochford
2 of
Millworks.
them rather large and within a 3-year period.
Yeah, so anyhow, I was on that afterwards, and I was quite impressed with each gulch I came to, everything had come out. I mean, it just flushed it out. And not having seen this, I probably shouldn't say anything, but I can't imagine in a big flood that this wouldn't be affected. There just isn't that kind of room in this thing. But that's my only comment at this point.
Mike, to throw in, even in those floods, both of them, we have 5 bridges within a mile and a half on Slate Creek, and they were 2 of the 5 were underwater at least 2 feet.
Did you
during
say
the same-
2017?
27,
Oh,
2007, I believe. was
One
the
of the photos in the staff report of the historic flooding that was provided by the public comment is actually from 2008.
Oh, that's when that one.
That
was.
could
2008,
be.
okay. I
Yeah.
saw that one.
That could be.
Okay. Lori, did you have a question?
Yeah, Madam Chair, as far as wetlands go, if this has been identified or is determined it's wetland, I mean, would this type of development be allowed in a wetland? Or would there be conditions that they would have to do additional work in order to provide this experience in a wetland?
There are permits that are provided through Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. I'm not sure how extensive they could develop it,
Okay.
but I know that there's permitting that they could go through to develop it.
And could you give us an idea of what those kind of things would be? I mean, would they have to like raise the grade of the elevation, or they'd be restricted on the activities that can happen in this kind of an area if it's determined it's a wetland?
I actually cannot answer that. no.
Yeah, I've never had a lot of experience with wetlands either, so I don't know what kind of limitations
I could
they
throw
might
in a
have.
little information, having dealt in construction with wetland. Wetlands type things are very negotiable
Oh, okay.
type item. People even trade land to allow use in a wetland somewhere. They may trade land use somewhere else that provides a wetland, this sort of thing. Very, very negotiable. There is a structured set of rules they go by to define a wetland, but once they get to that, then the process of use is one that's very open and negotiable, but you are correct, they have to sit down and go through, and there will be a document that says, okay, you can do this and you can do that.
And so what you're saying is certain activities could be allowed in a wetland if you offset it at another location?
That's a good way to put it. There is some offsetting,
Okay.
correct,
Okay. Right.
that you could trade out, who knows? And we don't know people, we don't know who's reviewing this for those people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the commission? I have several speaker request forms, and I can move on to those. First one is Jeff and Johanna.
I think we'll have Eric Neese go first, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm their lawyer. I'm in there too. Can I go before they go?
Okay. You're whose lawyer?
The whole Holtz.
Do you want to wait till the end?
No, they want me to go now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Eric Neese, attorney for the Holies, and they and others have asked me to kind of give a group presentation.
Could I get you to say your name again?
Oh, sorry, Eric Neese, Ericnies. I'm an attorney out of Spearfish.
Okay.
Anyway, to make it easier for you, I've been kind of asked to coordinate this and kind of give a general presentation on what the community doesn't like about this. And I know you've received several emails, which I believe are in the packet, I'd like to consolidate all that in one presentation. As I believe has already been discussed, we have the flooding issue, and there's been lots of anecdotal evidence, a lot of evidence that shows that this is a very narrow area that has been subject to very significant flooding, and there's very large concerns on behalf of my constituency that this is not an appropriate use. There's concerns about the septic being so close to the creek. There's concerns about questions of how we get the utilities across this creek. There's concerns about the fact that there's been major flooding in the past that would have blown up this entire area. There's concerns that such a narrow lot is not appropriate for this type of development. There's also concerns that has been stated about the wetlands. As far as we can tell from the map that's been provided, almost the entire lot is part of some type of wetlands, and it's not such that we can have traded use. Just the entire lot seems to be wetlands. So this is one of those situations in which, and I've been through a lot of these, we'd much prefer the issues of where the floodplain is, what the wetlands area is, to be dealt with before we get any type of approval. Our concern is if there's an approval with all of these contingencies, we're not going to be able to be involved in the further process of it. If there's a flood study, we'd like to see it. We'd like to be involved in the process before there's any approval. Added to that, as has been noted in these letters, there's also lots of concern about how this would change the use of the whole community. This is a very rural area. People do live up there. It's not just vacation cabins. And having a resort, even a smaller one, will radically increase traffic. There's concern about ATV, UTVs. There's concern about dust. There's concern about all those issues. So even if we didn't have very real questions about whether this can even happen, there's also very real concerns about the use. Just looking at the checklist from section 510 that's been provided, we very respectfully disagree with the fact that 2, 3, and 4 are marked yes. We believe under 2 that there would be a substantial impairment or diminishment in the values and enjoyment of the other property. We have the gentleman who's right across the street, and he may talk if he wants to. This property was never intended, never expected to be a resort. Under 3, we talk about not impede normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding properties. Again, this property was not intended to be a resort. And I understand this is why we have the variance process. I understand that just because you buy property in a ranchette district doesn't mean that it's not going to be changed. However, the burden is on the proponent to provide why that would be necessary. And then number 4, adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary site improvements. Again, there's a very large concern that this is never going to be able to happen with the drainage that we have, with the wetland and with the creek. We very much appreciate that staff has noted the issues with the creek and has added the extra contingencies. However, again, we don't believe that it's appropriate to deal with that simply with contingencies. We're talking about whether or not this can actually happen. And we would very much appreciate any approval to be tabled until we get to see the flood study. And I understand they don't want to put the money in before, but that's simply the way that something like this has to happen, because they're the ones asking for the variance. They're the ones asking for a differential use, and they can't even tell you if it's going to be allowed yet. So we'd much rather prefer that happen first. Let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's see if this can even happen. Let's see if there actually is a flood zone there before there's any approval. Thank you.
Questions? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Nobles, did you wish to speak?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
is there anybody who's for this project that's here? It might be appropriate to let them speak first.
Are you the applicant?
Kyle Carey is here. He's actually the engineer for the applicant
Okay.
from Interstate Engineering.
Do you want to wait till the end? Maybe there'll be some questions you can answer.
Madam Chair, can I ask the attorney to come up one more time? I did have a question. He indicated that he represented, do you represent just them, or are you speaking for others? Because we've got quite a list on the one, in fact, I'm trying to find it right now.
Certainly. I represent Jeff and Johanna Holy. I think it's fair that I speak for everybody else who's there.
Yes and yes.
Yeah, I don't represent
Normally,
them,
he's representing us.
but I'm
We've
speaking
talked
for the whole
everybody.
community.
Okay, because there is one that we got from Jeff Hole that listed a lot of names, carbon copies, that they were speaking for them. And that's why, and some of those folks submitted their own as well. That was all I was asking. So
Certainly,
you
yeah.
represent,
I represent,
Fine.
yep, just my clients, but I'm speaking for everybody else. Is that a fair? Okay,
okay.
thank you.
Now I understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
yeah, I don't know that we need to hear from them if he's representing them. I don't know.
Well, I think there's a couple of things I'd like to say, if I can.
Okay, as long as you're not repeating everything your attorney said.
Not to repeat, maybe emphasize. Okay, Jeff Holy, Jeff and Johanna Holy, we live in Silver Creek Road, up the road. So just a couple things I want to highlight. The first thing that struck me when I saw this is if you could put the map up again, Megan, if you wouldn't mind.
This one?
Back to the other one, yeah, the proposed plat.
This one.
So this is it's 7 acres and it's about 2,300 feet long, and the average width is 135 feet. I think the maximum distance across is about 250 is the widest part of this. And when I met the owner last fall, and she had a contractor who's looking at where she's going to build, there is one spot that looks like you could build a house without being in the floodplain. So my first reaction was, how is that even feasible? Especially with setbacks. The creek runs the entire length of the property. And I think Megan will acknowledge initially there was some confusion about whether it was a year-round, a full-time stream. It absolutely is. So if you didn't think it was a year-round stream, then you could get back get around the setbacks and septic locations and all the challenges of wetlands. But I just want to emphasize this is a very, very difficult spot to even think about doing this. And maybe you saw the email or heard from Ron Ross Connect. His words were, this is the wrong place for something like this. And if you go out and look at it, be no doubt. And I sent a bunch of pictures from the road trying to show you it's full of aspens and willows, and the creek runs the entire length. Just one small point that has been mentioned. So we, the owners on Silver Creek Road, we've maintained this road. And we have a permit from the Forest Service that allows us to maintain it. We've spent $100,000 on this road since 2009 or so. And this is going to change the maintenance needed, especially snow removal. The commercial enterprise is going to want the snow removed every time there's 4 inches or 5 inches, I'm guessing. We wait until, it needs to be done. Now, I'm not real excited about doing it for a commercial enterprise. So I think that's all the points I want to make, and I'm not going to repeat what Eric said.
Any questions,
Madam
Charlie?
Chair, question. Is yours a road district?
No, it's all voluntary.
Would you then be including them in your maintenance costs?
If they want to, and in fact, I talked to both of them. One of the other owners is here, Justin, and I've talked to Jenna when she was out there initially. And they said, yeah, we'll chip in. But it wasn't for this. So, we remove the snow when we need to get out, or if it's 2 feet. But I'm not in the mood to be doing it for a daily commercial enterprise that wants to keep the road.
Have you looked at a road district?
We have, and we're not really excited about it because it becomes a public road for the entire length. Once it's a road district, it's public, and we're not. There's part of it that's private, and we'd like to keep it private.
Okay.
That answers the question.
Other questions?
Do you have cell service up there?
No. Yeah, communication's another challenge.
That was my thought. But I'm
Okay.
just curious, because if you have a bunch of campers up there from a big city, something goes wrong, their first thing is, let's get on the phone. And there's no phone.
Yeah, maybe they can get a Wi-Fi link that'll work, but that location,
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that either.
So can I ask a question? So do you have landlines?
There's a landline that runs by there, so they could potentially access it. The problem is, we're at the end of the road, and I think every line is used. That's always been a problem for us up there, is we do have landlines, and they're kind of a premium.
Is that the old Century Link that was put in about 70 years ago?
It is. Yep, and it acts like it, too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Edward Haig?
My name is Edward Haig. I live at the end of Silver Creek Road on the north side. My folks built a cabin back in the 70s, and we've always had flood problems. And in those days, it was just a dirt trail, and my father took care of it with a little Fordson tractor with a little scraper. And then in the late 1980s, we had a major flood that took out the whole road. And so then the National Guard came up and rebuilt that road. And just to there, and then it is a homeowners, there's 2 different counties in the National Forest, and then we have a maintenance agreement through the National Forest, but it's 402.1 that goes up and joins with Calorium. And we have a horrible amount of ATVs and side-by-sides that go sliding around. We spend, on average, maybe $5,000 a year just for gravel. And Mr. Holy had to spend somewhere, you'd have to ask him, upwards of $100,000 for road equipment to keep that going. I did send some pictures of that flood of 2008. Since I've been there, there's been more than half a dozen smaller floods and a couple of other ones that took out the Rochford grade, and I think one of those pictures was out here too. If you would go back to a map that is showing the wetlands. I don't see the wetland. Oh, okay, over here.
Yep, on the left.
Okay.
So again, the wetlands are indicated on the left and the floodplain is indicated on the right.
Thank you. At the very top, north end of it, right there, there's a double set of culverts. And they're like 30-inch culverts. Almost every spring, we have to rework those culverts because they don't take the culverts out, but they work around them where you cannot transfer. There's no exit out. If anything happened and somebody had to go out, there's no way of getting out with a normal vehicle. They'd have to come to the south. The drainage, it's just going to be a poor analogy, but pretend what we're looking at is the trunk of a tree. And the branches to that tree cover 7 square miles. So anything east of Highway 17 north of Rochford up to Custer Crossing Road, there's about approximately 7 or 8 square miles. All of those branches come right straight down through here. I talked to the realtor. I don't know whether it had been purchased yet or not, and we were discussing how in the world can you build anything on that place. And she pointed out one area, and that's that thick thing. It'd take quite a bit of construction work, but we discussed what kind of a bridge, and I said, well, my neighbors have lost 2 bridges already floating down the creek. So we know we're going to have major floods every 8 to 10 years, but almost every spring, we're going to have road damage. And I do have a map, if a person wanted to see it. It's a geological map that shows all that drainage. And it's all, the only place it can come is through here. So anytime a heavy rain, then it was a heavy rain in 2008. It was July of 2008. And that was a heavy rain that created that one.
Other questions for Mr. Hague?
When the Guard redid the road back in the 70s?
Well, the road has always been there. Way back, Berkshire, when the standby mine was built.
Yeah, I remember that.
There was, I think this is 1909, there was a homestead up there, up towards the end, just by where Sheehan's owns now, where you go back up behind. Oops, excuse me. And so there was a dirt trail, and then Dad took care of that dirt trail until the road got completely washed out, and then it was redone by the National Guard. And then we went ahead and got a permit to maintain that road, because it was built to county specifications. It's a very nice road. And then thanks to the Holies, it's maintained under that agreement that we have to keep the snow off. We have to keep it this way. We do have a horrible issue with ATVs, and it's very, very sharp corners. And so anybody that lives there, you look for dust, and that means somebody's coming at you fast. There have been a number of accidents up there too.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes.
You mentioned the ATVs. This is a private road, correct?
Well, it's a 402-1. Actually, it's a Forest Service road.
Okay.
So it starts down at Rochford Grade, goes up about a mile and a half, and then turns and goes back up behind and heads over to Calorian Road.
Because I know that, like when you drive along Rochford Road, there's ATVs all over the place.
Oh, my gosh.
And so what you're saying is that ATVs are allowed to be on this? Because
Yes, we
the
cannot-
Forest Service has designated certain areas?
Yeah, and
Okay,
they're
so-
a major,
Yeah.
major accident issue.
Yes. Okay, I just wanted to understand that concern. Thank you.
So, yes, well, and then one other item. I talked to the Realtor, and I have no idea whether it was before or after the sale. But she said something about it was in process, and we took a ride in my Ranger. And I asked, where on earth can you put a house? And she pointed to that one, and you'd have to do quite a bit of construction work, but you could put it up here on this west side. And I said, well, this thing floods every year. Well, we can put a culvert. And I said, you're going to need a bridge, a big one. And we've already had a bridge float, and I think you've got pictures of that bridge floating down the stream. So to me, it doesn't make sense at all. It's zoned for residential, and when we heard about a resort, it just couldn't believe it. I'm absolutely, totally against that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
The engineer, I don't have your name, but if you'd like to speak.
So I am Kyle Carey. I'm with Interstate Engineering.
What is your name again?
Kyle Carey, Kyle Megan, can I switch this to the site plan? Or is that, okay. So, I wrote down a few questions, and it seems at least ones that I can answer today are gonna be, the septic, and then utilities crossing the creek, and then the road. my understanding is when this property, and you can see the opposing property line on the, what would that be, the east side of Silver Creek? The dashed line there, that all used to be one lot. And when they subdivided it for sale, my understanding is that the Forest Service took over that road at that point. And it,
No, that's not true, no. That's
all Okay.
private. First half mile is private. The next mile and a quarter is.
Point of order.
Yeah. Okay.
that was what I was told from the Forest Service. And it sounds like it may not be correct, but that's our information. And so with that, for the maintenance, and I know she's, Jenna, the owner, has offered to help out with the maintenance of it. What that would be, obviously, is outside of our scope. But then if the Forest Service has control, they also would be responsible for some of that maintenance, to my understanding. The utilities, the only point that utilities would be coming on is if you look at the map on the left side, there's an emergency access. And, oh, thank you. And at that point,
Use the mouse.
perfect. At this point right here, it's hard to see on that screen, but there's a yellow line drawn.
Yeah.
And that would be the access. And so it wouldn't cross the creek at any point outside of the roadway, whether that's private or forest, it would be within the roadway. And it would all be overhead. And then for the septic, so this was our initial proposal down here. And as I believe somebody pointed out, there was some confusion as to whether this was a full-time stream or not, and how it was going to be considered by the state. So this was our original proposal. They looked at it further and said it needs to be the full offset. And so in this far corner over here will actually be where that septic is planned to go, and that meets all the state setback requirements. I think that's everything.
Questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
you're from the engineering firm?
Yes, sir.
You represent the owner. Did you guys do the hydrology study then?
We did, yeah.
So then maybe can you speak on how the other fellow suggested that the drainage comes down from the creek, comes into one function
Yeah.
at the north end of the culvert?
So I can touch on it. I'm not a hydrologist or a certified floodplain manager, but we have someone in our office who is, so he did the study. So they ran a cross-section through the creek, roughly, and I could find out more if needed, but roughly this area. And that was where, what does the topography look like? What does it channel? All of that to get the information. And there's actually down around this area a station that gives exact flows, gives peaks and valleys. And so we use that to find out what is a 100-year flood, what's that width, and then what is, I think they did a 2-year flood as well, just to get a standard operating flow through there.
So there was a suggestion that your hydrology study was different than FEMA's. Is that, I mean, I don't, that part is still unclear to me. All that.
Yeah, and so I think Megan might be able to answer more of this than.
So the floodplain that's provided by FEMA is not always accurate. How they do their studies may be a different methodology than an engineering firm would come in and do. So when an engineering firm comes in and does an analysis like that, it usually alters the flood boundary.
So did their hydrology study alter, why is this an issue? I mean,
So
if it, why is it
the-
raised to be an issue if the FEMA says there's no floodplain, 100-year, then the hydrology study says there is? I guess that's, I don't quite understand why are we bringing this back up?
There might be. We want to cover all bases. We want to make sure that there isn't. There wasn't a full floodplain study provided. It was just a hydraulic analysis that had
That's a
some.
whole different study then? Hydraulic
Yes.
analysis would be
So
more
you
extensive
develop,
study.
you develop your floodplain analysis based on your hydraulic analysis. I was provided a hydraulic analysis.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're looking for something farther
Yes.
extensive than that?
Yep.
What would that cost?
I'd hate to give you a solid number, but it would be for sure 5 digits.
Pardon? Like a ballpark?
Thousands?
The owner's not here, right? There's the owner here?
No, she's not here.
Okay. I mean, she had to consider this as being a consideration.
Yeah, and I couldn't tell you for sure. I'd hate to give you a solid number, but
Madam Chair?
Thank you, Madam
Yes.
Chair.
Can I ask the staff another question?
Same here.
Also, FEMA floodplain studies, this is a fairly minor creek. Aren't they more focused on major areas? So sometimes the FEMA data, they don't get to this stuff, or they just kind of do a cursory review of it? Is that correct?
That would be more correct in this area. There is a study on it, but we don't have quite the details as it would have closer to the city of Rapid City. So closer to the city of Rapid City, you're going to have cross-sections, you're going to have indications of specific floodways, such as 500-year and floodway, rather than just like the 100-year floodplain. Out here, we just have an indication of the 100-year floodplain.
And so FEMA probably, like you said, looked at the stuff that feeds into Rapid Creek, and then some of these minor things, they probably looked at a map, may have done a site visit, and just made some assumptions about the area, correct?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Also, sometimes geological studies overlap some of these, and they go back and look at some of those because those are constantly ongoing. My question is, what's the setback in Ranchette?
25 feet.
That would, on a septic, that would be an interior access as well.
So for the septic system, it is 10 feet from the property line and 100 feet from the stream. For structures, it is that 25 feet.
Okay, what about your road that goes through, they can't drive on it?
The road is not
A
going.
half feet from the property line, did you say?
I guess,
The internal road?
the internal road isn't gonna have those setbacks as long as it doesn't impede the drainage. So like the minor drainage.
As long
and
as the road
utilities.
doesn't run right on the field. You can't have the road run on the septic field.
No, you cannot.
That was my point.
Yes.
Okay. 7.5 feet property line, and what'd you say from the house, 25?
10 feet from the property line,
10 feet
for
from?
septic.
Okay. And from any other structure, you said one other one in there.
So the tank needs to be 10 feet from any structure,
Okay.
but the structures themselves need to be 25 feet away from the property line.
Thank you.
Commission, what's your pleasure?
Madam Chair, I have a question for Jason. That'd be fine. Jason, I can't consciously approve this without understanding the floodplain better. I understand that there's a cost to be involved, and if I was doing this, I would have known if there would be an issue with the floodplain, because I put people's lives in danger. If we, or if the commission so chose to kick this can down the road until we had approval, how would that look in your eyes? Or do we deny this and kick the can down the road? Or for me personally, I typically want projects to work out. I know that you guys look at this from a perspective as, do they have the legal right to do this? and I'm assuming that they do. But when you're talking about, if it was a structure or something that people weren't living in, it wasn't a tent, something different, I could probably be comfortable with it, and I'd say, okay, but consciously, and with the people here that have had experience in the floodplain, my experience tells me that they've seen this thing flood. And I've been on situations that I've warned people about that, and sure enough, the stuff floods. It happened up in Hermosa. I know they're not identical. They took it out of the floodplain, and I was completely against it. They built houses in it, and wasn't even 3 years later, they flooded, and the houses were floating down the creek. I guess my question is, and I'll summarize it, is what does it look like to you? I don't want to just tell them no, but I'm not going to approve it on my behalf. I don't know what the rest of the commission wants to do. I'm not going to sign off on it unless I see hydrology analysis that shows the fact that this ain't going to flood, and that engineer stamps it. And they can put their engineer stamp on that and be responsible for that study.
So that hydraulic analysis is stamped?
Pardon?
The hydraulic analysis is stamped, and it shows that 100-year flood, and again, it's at the one cross-section, so it's not the full site.
Maybe, Megan, can you explain to me again then, because I thought there was another level of hydrology analysis that had to be done to say whether this was in a floodplain or not.
Yeah, so developing the floodplain boundary takes the hydraulic analysis and it applies it on the map that we see, so that we have this boundary. They're going to take that 163 cubic feet per second that was indicated on the hydraulic analysis, and they're going to show us what it looks like in the stream channel.
And Megan, maybe you can speak more to this. My understanding is the hydraulic analysis is, at one point, what is it doing? And the floodplain would say at all points, what is it doing?
Yeah. Well, anywhere that there's going to be a tent or somebody sleeping in it, I mean, I would want to know if I was going to rent a spot on this creek, and which I know would be beautiful and it'd be fun and it'd be great, but I mean, if I have my family there and next morning they're gone.
And that the hydraulic analysis, and I don't have it in front of me, but the 100-year width at that point, I believe was 21 feet and some change.
Why do we keep bringing this up then? I don't know. Jason, help me out. I don't understand.
I was going to bring up the hydraulic analysis.
Yep, so I think you have valid points, and staff would feel more comfortable if we had a floodplain study, but
He's saying you already do.
we don't have that. We have the hydraulic.
So it would be the hydraulic analysis would be at this point or at 2 points.
Do you know what Jason wants from you then?
I believe so, a full map.
Okay, well then
correct?
let's just,
Correct.
that's my position. I mean,
and then
I'll
if-
yield to the floor here, or to the commission.
Right, and staff would also feel more comfortable once that map is provided that the updated, or the site plan's updated too.
Okay, as long as you two understand.
And I believe there's a condition.
I just want something stamped by an engineer that said these people aren't gonna flood out.
And I believe there's something, a condition for that,
Yeah,
correct?
Megan did include that as a condition of approval. But again, it's up to
And
the
then
commission if
obviously-
they want to approve it prior to, or if they want to see that analysis before you give your
I would wanna see the
recommendation.
analysis before I made any type of, that's my position, and that maybe not be theirs. The wetlands, we could live with, it is a stipulation, you know, that they mitigate that or whatever, and all your stipulations are fine, but I have no interest in approving this it doesn't make sense. I don't know what else to say, for me. I hope that makes sense to you.
I believe it does.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So are you saying that typically you don't put a condition, I mean, typically you approve it and then you require the applicant to meet that condition before it moves forward? So it would be unusual for us to have to see the data before we approve this?
So what we're looking at right now is the use of the property. So that's what's being requested now. It's just the use of the resort on the property. So that's the decision to make right now. If you feel like you have enough information to make that determination, then you should move forward with your decision. If you don't and you want to request that information from the engineer, I'd recommend that we continue it for a certain amount of time.
I have a comment that hasn't necessarily been focused on. I'm really concerned about a property that has a total capacity of 22 persons, plus extras, one septic system, and they're in a wetland, and it's upstream from Rapid City. That makes no sense to me. I think we're making a bad decision if we approve this.
And Madam Chair, just so I understand the results of this hydrology, you're saying, the hydraulic study, you're saying that the average width of this property is, I heard the number, 135 feet, and this study showed the width of flooding is like 21 feet or 20 feet? I mean, that's quite a large portion. That's along the creek, just in that one area, correct?
That's what it sounds.
And the floodplain study would then look at how a flood affects it through the entire length of it, correct? Of the property?
Based on topography, correct.
Okay.
Could you show the floodplain map? So that blue section there is a floodplain map, and so if we do a full floodplain analysis, or study, that blue line would extend to whatever that floodplain is. And I say that it most likely wouldn't on rapid maps or FEMA standards, but for the county, you would have that map.
You would do it for that property?
Exactly, yeah. Yep. If that's what the condition is voted on, then yeah.
I guess the other concern, besides the septic, is most of us have sat here when we had vacation home rentals where we're having one house in a community, and we had the whole audience filled with people opposing, and now we're talking about putting a resort in a residential community, and I don't think it's a good idea.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we do have to consider, though, administratively, the applicant's rights here, too. They spend money to apply these, so if we did look at something because we didn't feel we had all the information, that's one avenue where you continue. If we looked at not doing it, and yet they haven't submitted all the information that we've questioned already at the council or commission, then you're looking at another. That's like a denial without prejudice. So the person doesn't have to go back and go through these costs and administrative things again, I guess would be my biggest concern. We certainly owe it to a property owner to do that. I'm not up here to double up costs for property owners, whether they
That's why
get
I was
something
asking
approved
Jason
or not approved. So anyway, I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in. There is one other factor, and that's the applicant's right to what he or she's already spent. Thank you.
100%, Madam Chair?
Yes.
And I agree, that's why I'm asking Jason. I don't expect the property owner to go back and get all these fees again, but I do think that if this is my project or a project that I would want to approve, I would put the money in up front to make sure that it makes sense. The small amount that it's going to cost that may prevent someone from getting flash flooded away, or may not, don't know. But if we can eliminate the expenses moving forward, and that was what I was alluding to, what he said there is, do we deny it? Or do we kick it down the road? How do we do that to make sure that if this is the wish of the commission?
Can I throw in one more thing? My biggest concern is that this study we're asking for could in fact set the time schedule down backwards considerably. I don't think you just pull these people up, call them up tomorrow, and they're going to get it done next week. I foresee a substantial delay.
Sure, and if the commission chooses to continue this for 2 weeks, for a month, that would give us time to gauge the applicant's interest in moving forward.
And we do have to have a date on the.
Correct.
All right, I'll move that we continue this for 30 days. Or the 2 meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 meetings.
That'd be May 12th.
May 12th?
Yes.
You might know, that's the one I'm not going to be here, right? And I'm making the motion.
Well, there's May 12th or.
Okay, but
May
that's a
14th.
fair, I would believe 2 meetings is fair.
That's the motion.
That's the motion.
I second that.
Madam Chair, are we
Yes.
going to do discussion then?
Yes, discussion.
Okay, so discussion. So I guess I look at this, I equate this to like the solar wind farm. There was lots of opposition to that, but our approval was just the first step for that applicant to do the further permitting and the further study that's required. And that's why I was in favor of that, because that was a tiny little hurdle, and then he had this major hurdle that they still have to get over.
Right.
So our approval of this is just approval that the applicant may be able to do this on his property if he meets all these other conditions. So I don't know why it's any different than that. Again, there was lots of opposition to that, too.
Yep, I think that's a fair point, but there is also an unknown safety issue with the unknown.
Yeah, there is that additional, yes, there's that additional safety issue, which is very important.
Madam
So-
Chair. And then one of the things I want to advise is we don't need all these other things submitted again and gone through. I read every one of them, and I realize sometimes the audience doesn't think we do read them, but I read every one of them several times. And if there's people that can't attend, attorneys, they cost money, right? So in case you didn't want them to attend and spend that money, that doesn't mean we've forgotten their testimony previously. The same people are going to be up here. We won't make July on the meeting, in other words. So I think a continuance to allow them, your applicant, to discuss what they want to approach it. Certainly the commissioners then have the idea. County is responsible for safety. No question about it.
Madam Chair, I'll
Yes.
just explain myself a little bit why Commissioner points out a good point, and like I mentioned earlier, I don't typically want people to go spend a bunch of money that they would otherwise just not spend. But in this case, this is far more important than a windmill farm or whatever that typically is not going to kill anybody or have the potential. I think we pointed out the fact that one of the things we got to look at is the safety aspect. The client's not here, the buyer's not even here today. How committed is she to this project anyway, is my concern. And she does have the right to have someone else represent her. I get that. But we got a legitimate question here. This is a business. Businesses cost money if you want to be socially and economically responsible in the place that you're going to build this. This is a beautiful place, there's no doubt about it. And then there's a lot of concerns here when you're running along the creek. That's why I think that's important to have skin in the game on this thing, to prove to us that this is safe. To me, it's just a common sense that it's not, but I have slept in campgrounds and stuff that do have creeks in them, but I'm assuming that they've met those hydrology things. We don't even know. And if we just make it an exception, then we keep going down the road and then without knowing, and that's why I don't typically look at things in that view perspective, but with this one I do, because there's a lot at stake here. Just one life would be worth the fact of having that study, and that's not going to be a guarantee, but at least it gives you a more security that we're doing what we're supposed to do. And I know it's a stipulation, but I don't see the skin in the game, and if I'd like to see that. I mean, moving forward, this is a big deal. If you're going to run a business, it's going to cost you money to do it, to get it started. I get all that, and we're not here to create more red tape. I get that, and if we move it down the road, it gives them the opportunity to reuse their same application. We're not adding another burden on them. The burden's going to be there if they're committed to making this happen. I would have done it prior. I mean, they've already spent a lot of money in engineering fees. It'd probably scare you to death. I mean, so that's just my position on it. And I agree that it is kind of strange to operate that way. But thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam
Yeah.
Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to throw my 2 cents in here. I think this is a beautiful piece of property out there, perfect for a single-family residence. I don't think that the structures that they're looking at fit in this area, but I could see a single-family home going in there. If you look at that other map that we've been looking at that shows the actual layout of it, the terrain on that is, look at the topo on there. You're at the river's bottom and everything, most of it in there. And to put people in at the far end, like everybody else has been saying, I agree 100% that that's going to be a challenge for me to be able to support unless there's a good flood cert that comes out or something that says this isn't going to flood in a long time. Otherwise, I think a single-family home would be perfect there.
And we don't have, from the engineer's standpoint, we don't have any issue with, with providing a full floodplain. It's something we do quite often. It'll be purely if our client chooses to pursue that.
Our usual submissions based on 100-year information?
My understanding, and again, Megan would be able to answer more of that, but yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Be continued to May 12th.
Madam Chair,
Yes. I
I move that we take off the table item number 17 and revisit it, or the appropriate word, I guess, is
Discuss or understand it or.
reconsider, I believe, under Roberts.
I'll take it off the table. Yeah, do we have a second to that?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item number 17.
Okay, Madam Chair, had a chance to review what they have here. Is there any way we can have a condition, and maybe it should be in future? Okay,
can't
not
do
on these type of things, especially a rezone, right? Okay, then I understand what they're doing here. It's, I'm glad it's available for your person, your applicant, from the file.
Just out of curiosity, Charlie, what would you like to see as a condition? Is that something that staff can address prior to the next rezone request? Or is there something specific to this one that you wanted addressed?
You know, there really isn't anything. It's just the idea that they have to live in conjunction with what's already the established norm, I guess is what I'm saying, from these, the ditch companies. And those ditch companies are already under a certain amount of pressure about leakage and other things. I know it's a two-way street.
Right.
But it is nice to have this basis, I think, for your applicant, to know what they're dealing with.
Right. Yeah.
They may or may not have it available to
Yeah,
them.
if they're gonna have an electronic layer that we can somehow get into Rapid Map, that would be very important to us, yeah.
That was the only concern I had. I think they can live together.
Okay, the chair would address a motion on item number 17. Rezone CORZ 25-0002.
I guess I'd call it, so move to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second. And then we're going to have discussion? Okay, just for discussion then, from what I understand is this will be done through the city of Rapid City, and you've encouraged the woman who gave us the information about the ditch to approach the city of Rapid City, but it's going to be up to the city of Rapid City to decide if they want to create a layer or whatever for these irrigation ditch companies.
Correct.
It's really something we can't, the county's not responsible for, correct? Is that what you're saying?
It's
I mean,
interesting that you do that.
I mean, it's just that you can make them aware of it, but you can't make them do it.
Exactly.
You can't require them to do it.
Well,
If you don't mind, and I think you're right, all she wanted to do is make this guy aware of it, because she will win the precedent. They have the precedent.
Oh, yeah.
Above and beyond even the railroad
It's like, yeah,
tracks.
yeah.
So as you just,
It was there before the railroad was there.
yeah, exactly. If you really want to see something cool, go out there and visit her, and she'll show you these things and how perfectly they flow. And they had engineers doing this in the 1800s. It's amazing, but it's, she just wanted to make sure, she just wanted to be a good neighbor. And make sure that they understand if they damage that ditch, there will be consequences, so they have to she's trying to basically, keep something from happening where he's gonna be in a situation that,
Sure.
when that's why they have the guidelines. If you're gonna touch that ditch, they gotta know about it, and they gotta have specific guidelines, and so I hope that makes sense.
And she's not saying that she opposes this.
No, she does not
She's
oppose
just
it.
saying,
She's not.
here's the information, don't mess up our ditch.
in fact, she says the other. She doesn't
Yes,
oppose it.
she's in favor of it.
However, what I think she's alluding to, and that's what I was going to suggest, Jason, make sure the city gets these copies. I'm sure they have them. The city has not always had the most comfortable relationship with the ditch people out in Rapid Valley and people's property concerns in regards to that ditch. So I'm just saying, I think we're doing the right thing. We at least considered it and included it in our discussion.
100% the right thing, and you're absolutely right. If anybody knows where she is, you know where the Elks Country Club is? She's to the east. She is, if she so chooses, she can stop Rapid City from growing any more to the east. She has 2,000 acres over there. And if y'all want to have an offline conversation about her, and they're a great neighbor, they're great people. Like she says, she doesn't want to stand in the way, but she has ran into issues with that ditch, and 100% she wins. But it's just the idea of the whole, stomach acid you got to go through, and she's trying to eliminate that from happening with this gentleman. And she will definitely visit the city. I visited with her prior to the meeting. So yeah, if you ever want to see her land and what she has, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. You can see it's a wide open field right now, so. And it's right behind Jolly Lane.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, okay.
But you should know that even though they precede the railroad as far as rights, the railroad got a better deal. They had an additional 25-foot setback so they could tell them to stay the hell off their property if they wanted to. So that's why the ditches about cleanliness, leakage, that sort of things have always been a bone of contention and conversation. It's a tough thing. I don't think even for this lady dealing with that sort of thing, who goes out there, who's going to take care of the ditch? And then there's people who probably tell you not to cut down the tree that's growing in the ditch because that's not allowable federally or something, So it is thing, and I was glad to see that included in our.
And the ditch has a lot of water rights.
Oh,
lot of water rights.
Let alone you get
People
into
that-
those, yes.
So it's a whole interesting conversation but
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. We do not need an executive session today. County Board report?
The Board of Commissioners concurred with the Planning Commission's recommendations from the March 24th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting.
There is no public for items from the public. Items from staff.
We just have the building permit report. I believe you all have a copy of that as well. I'll just kind of run down a couple of the highlights. So you can see our single-family residences are up approximately 27%. We got a total of 38 so far this year. Looks like telecom facilities are also up by the tune of 800%. So we got 9 of those so far this year, as opposed to 1 last year. A lot of those have to do more or less with equipment swaps and things like that. Antenna change-outs, equipment on the ground, things like that. Sheds and accessory structures seem to be down this year, slightly. And overall, we're ahead by about 16 permits this year, as opposed to last year. With that, I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Items from the membership?
Madam Chair, I'll be absent next meeting.
Chair would address a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?